Now recognize the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Cammack, for her 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for appearing before us today. We'll just jump right into it. And I hope I pronounced this right, Ms. Jezik? Ah, yes. All right. It's a good win on a Friday. As you know, in my home state of Florida, hurricane readiness, preparedness, response, these are significant issues that we all face. In your testimony, you noted how resistant infections can impact our response and response time to national disasters like natural disasters like hurricanes. Can you tell us a little bit more about the connection between antimicrobial resistance and natural disasters, how we can be better prepared on the front end?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So with hurricanes, there are a couple of different things that can happen that can trigger an increase in infections. When we see widespread loss of activity, we see increased food spoilage and more foodborne infections. When we see decreases in access to safe water and when we see interactions with floodwater, we start to see more infections from waterborne pathogens. When people need to leave their homes and have to go to emergency shelters, those shelters can be very crowded. That's a very easy area for infections to spread. Many of those infections can be resistant. Even when those infections are not resistant, if individuals are given antibiotics, that can help fuel future resistance. As we think about other types of natural disasters, wildfires, serious burns can very easily become infected with pathogens that are very difficult to treat. So as we think about preparedness for natural disasters, we need tools in the toolbox to deal with these infections. So we need those novel antimicrobial therapies, and we need experts who know how to use them, who can figure out quickly, because hours matter in infectious disease, who can really figure out quickly what does this patient have and what's going to be the most effective treatment.
Thank you. And just to build on that, so taking it from a natural disaster to maybe a national security threat, a national or even global incident. You talk about all the different ways in which antimicrobial resistance could lead to a national security crisis. And I know certainly we are alarmed of some of the things that we're hearing today. But when you think of it on a massive scale and how it could potentially lead to the proliferation of an antimicrobial resistance, can you share with the committee how it is a threat, this issue that we're discussing today is a threat to national security, and what we need to do to be better prepared on a national and global scale?
Absolutely. Well, as terrifying as it is to think about, pathogens can easily be weaponized. And the pathogens can be engineered to become more resistant and weaponized. And if some bad actor were to weaponize an antibiotic-resistant pathogen and spread it across the United States, we are not prepared. We don't have the therapeutics that we need. We don't have the diagnostics that we need. We don't have as many infectious diseases experts as we need. Even getting away from bioterror specifically, any mass casualty event where you have a lot of people in a hospital, that can be any kind of terrorist attack, it can be another pandemic. If our hospitals get overwhelmed, we start to see these infections really flourish, and we need more tools in the toolbox.
Thank you for that. This is getting scarier as we go through this.
I'm
so
sorry.
Apologies to everyone on a Friday. But it is important, and you know, you hit on this. So I'm gonna shift to Miss I hope I get it right. Denigan McCauley. Okay. So your report discusses 4 areas for addressing this issue, AMR: surveillance, testing, treatment, and stewardship. Of these, which is the most important, and what should this committee be prioritizing?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't tell you which is the most important because they all go hand in hand. As we had mentioned, this is a One Health approach. It's very complex. So for example, if you create a new antibiotic, if you don't have judicious use of that antibiotic, you're just going to end up with resistance again. So really, they all go hand in hand. You have to understand the magnitude. You have to be able to track the spread for all the different things that we've talked about today.
Thank you. And the GAO based on your work, what has the federal government done to combat AMR, and how successful have those efforts been? And I fear that I know the answer to this question, but for the record.
I do want to give credit. There has been a lot of work, and as we've talked about before, there have been task force. Having leadership and sustained attention is absolutely critical. It's something that GAO feels very strongly in, and having hearings like we are having today and continuing this attention. Our report came out in 2020, unfortunately in the midst of the pandemic. And so being able to continue and bring this to light, this is a pandemic, it is a public health threat. And so they do have many efforts underway, but as I had mentioned in my opening statement, there are more things that need to be done. We need better diagnostic tools. We need those tools to be able, we need doctors to use those tools, even if we have them. You know, when someone walks in with a screaming baby and they're like, I have an ear infection, and the doctor only has a few minutes with them, are they going to take the time to decide whether or not, you know, they're giving the right antibiotic to treat the right bug, has been mentioned before. So it's quite complicated, and there's a lot of things, but more is definitely needed, and GAO continues to track this as we go forward.
Thank you. My time has expired. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.